Awesome. We should be live. Let me change my name real quick. Cool. So thanks everyone for coming today. We are going to be going through the ComCom agenda, and we should be good to go. So before we do that, do we want to give initiative updates? Dan, anything new in user feedback or I don't think Ahmad is on the call, or mentorship?
Yeah, sure. Quick update. So we raised our hands and asked for help from Tracy Lee and foundation folks, Tracy graciously sort of added +1 some folks to both initiatives. So really happy with that. You know, as we kind of head into the second year of both, you know, folks, we've seen Ahmed. You know, Ahmed just landed a great new job, so I'm sure he'll have news for us about that soon. So that's exciting. I personally just went through the experience of landing in a new place. It's incredibly disruptive to your ability to plug in and volunteer. So you know, that's been challenging, and we're hoping to you know, lean on the foundation a bit to provide some continuity there. That's kind of the high level of both.
Cool. Is Ben on the call? An update from Ben. Walid. I'm just going through the list here. Website redesign. Adam, is there any update on that? Oh wait, Adam's not in the call. Duh. Manila, is he on the call? No. Cool. So I guess we'll skip that one. Cool. Any other updates on projects or initiatives? Cool. We can hop into the agenda then. And thank you, Manil, for, or not Manil, Jem for helping out with the minutes. So one thing I did want to say. One thing I did want to say before we get started is there, I guess, will be an update to Node.js collection. Before that, though, Zibby shared that she will be leaving the LF, and I just wanted to thank her publicly for everything she's done over the last 3 years for Node.js, the community committee, the Node.js collection, all of the different parts, the moving parts of the community and managing social media and everything else. So just wanted to give Zibby a big thank you for that and let her know we appreciate her.
Thank you, Zibby.
Thanks.
Huge +1 to that. Yeah, she's been vital to, you know, everything that we've been doing, communicating with the world over the past several years, right?
Yep.
Since we
It's
started.
going to be hard to replace you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I have, I noted 2 of my colleagues, Rachel and Amanda, are on the line, and they're going to help kind of do what I did, social public relations going forward. So if you have questions, need help with anything, reach out to them. I tagged their GitHub handles in the issue tracker for this meeting. So they're awesome. They're going to be great. Thank you all too for being awesome community to work with. It's been a lot of fun. So I probably won't go away too much. I might pop up here and there. You never know.
Awesome. And I do believe that both of them actually joined the meeting today. I see Rachel.
Nice to meet you
yep,
both, Rachel and Amanda.
Yeah,
Hey guys, this is Rachel. Thanks so much for the warm welcome. Super excited.
Thank you.
Great. Awesome. So we can get into the agenda now. I've said that like 3 times. So first item on the agenda is issue 239 in Node.js admin. More thorough support for travel fund recipients. Let me take a look at this. Okay, so this is an issue I started just from kind of some of the experiences we had at Interactive this year. A few people had some issues, and I just wanted to see kind of what we could do around that to help lower the barriers to actually getting them to come to the Collaborative Summit and the Node Foundation events. It looks like there's been...
Yeah, in the last meeting, our discussion was that we can look if we can have a new email ID like visa@foundation or node.js.org, and we can put it in the documentations and people can put their requests through the email. And yep, that was the last thing. I'm not sure if ZB would know if we can.
Yeah, I know my colleague Sarah Conway wanted to join to talk about this, but she's at KubeCon in China, so she wasn't able to join. But I know her and Tracy had a few conversations on kind of what would be best there, because our one fear in creating an email alias is if we can't answer questions, because we might not be able to help in everything. We don't want people to feel stuck or just not have a good process. So I think I'd like to put it on hold, and then Tracy Lee and Sarah can join the next call to kind of talk through that a little bit more. I know it's annoying that we keep pushing this back, but they wanted to hear a little bit more about it and provide maybe some other options that they could do just to make sure everything seemed smooth in this kind of process that, you know, it has a lot of things moving to it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. We can hold it in the next meeting maybe, or so.
Sounds good. I'm going to just note that in the issue. Sorry,
we have a new alias that you know, I don't know if folks tuned into. It showed up as I was doing my reimbursement. So you know, I don't remember that being in place. So maybe the travel approvals at node.js.org is enough of a routing to sort of that's already started.
Maybe, but the one we are talking about is about the people who are seeking some help about getting how to get visa out. So that travel approval, yeah, I think it would be a little different, but we'll see. I think, well, yeah.
Cool. So I commented in that issue. We will leave the label on for next week. Okay, here. Too many tabs. Okay. So next issue is Sprout Social and Social Media Champions, issue 411 in ComCon. So what's the 411? It's basically Zibby was to write a proposal and share this time.
Yeah, so apologies for that. Amanda's going to kind of take over that going forward. I have just a rough draft, but she needs to review it and get it in a good place to share. So just kind of in the transition. I think we can put that up to our next ComCon, but Amanda will be kind of running point on that.
I just wanted to jump in and say, yes, I've already started, but I definitely would need some more time to delve into it a little bit more. So probably by our next call, I should have a better understanding and be able to really put my thoughts behind it.
Cool. Sounds good. Let me comment that in the issue real quick. Cool. I'm gonna close that one. Next issue or next agenda item is individual membership subgroup proposal, request for feedback. I believe there was some discussion. Yes, so Adam had said that him and Tracy are going to be tag teaming this and coming up with a draft of the Bootstrap committee stage.
Yeah, maybe Tracy can speak to that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. So yeah, deadline supposedly, passed, but is not yet really, because we have not had a board meeting scheduled. And that was pretty much the arbitrary deadline that we had set. So the idea behind this, for context for folks who don't know, is that the individual membership director position that William Kapke currently sits in is up for election in January. So technically, I think we need to start looking at that in December. We had set earlier in the year the idea that we should have the proposal for the individual membership program and director seat up and for consideration by the end of October, because of how long it can take for bylaw changes to be drafted, resolutions to be written by the lawyer, so that this stuff can happen by the end of the year. So the individual membership subgroup had been working on that. We have a draft that we ended up surfacing again yesterday. So I'd actually sent it to board members last month asking for input. They were welcome to comment in draft on the proposal that we had so far to help finish that out. We had not gotten a lot of feedback in the draft there. So I had introduced it again in the Joint Strategy Subcommittee meeting. We actually walked through that doc yesterday to try and get some more candid feedback. And we didn't have any negative feedback. We just had the feedback, which is we need more details. So so far what was in there was good. So, but we know that in past conversations, directors needed more details in specific areas to get this moving from what they know that they didn't like about our past iterations of this work. So Adam and I are going to be working on taking the draft that already exists, putting it in the template form of the proposal system that was just shipped for the project. Then we will also add in more details around the areas of feedback that we were given. And that's things like, I know we weren't supposed to really go down the rabbit hole of like how we choose a director, but if the proposal in any way mentions like the need for a director, that they would want those details. Otherwise, it's not something that would be they'd be comfortable resolving. And then also more details around like why a membership is valuable, how we implement the details, like what resources it takes, etc. So we're going to work on that. We'll have a draft for y'all soon to get more feedback. So we're hoping, even with the holidays, to get that up very shortly, because as far as I know, the board meeting will be somewhere between December 12th and December 14th, which means that we have to have that draft finalized more than a week prior, because we have to get resolutions drafted in the bylaws proposal up as well, if there's any amendments to be made there. And the board directors have to have plenty of time to see the final draft to feel comfortable with voting on it in the board meeting. So lots of process to get there.
Cool.
Yep.
Tracy and Adam, really appreciate you guys picking up that and carrying that forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, somebody had to do the work in the other months, and we appreciate that. So we're just, carrying the torch further.
Cool. Anyone else have comments or thoughts around this? Questions? Cool. We can move on to the next issue, which is charter changes, remove redundancies. Opening this up. So this is the PR from Miles, effectively providing us a place to kind of polish up our charter. This had previously had a do not merge label on it, but Ahmad just removed that an hour ago. I'm pretty sure it's still do not merge. Am I right on that?
If it's a charter change, if it's a charter change, that can't be merged until board approval.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna add that back.
Yeah.
But I think this was just
in final state. We should probably indicate that in some way, like ready for ship, and then I need to take that as an action item to take to the board for the next meeting.
Okay. And would that, did you take the one before this from you that I resubmitted to the board already, or is that in the next meeting as well?
Yeah, so I was actually trying to, I need to follow up with note takers from the last board meeting because it was very early in the morning and we had a lot of business to cover in a very short amount of time. So I want to make sure that we can merge it. I think it's good. I think that there was no questions about it at that point, but I'll follow up with an email today. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. And so this one, the one we're looking at right now, is separate from that one, just for context for everyone. If you do have other changes, please review this, or if you want to kind of give feedback, please review this. It would be extremely helpful to get that feedback. I'm probably going to end up doing that today, just myself. So, get those changes in, and let's make sure our charter is solid for everyone. Cool. And so Tracy can bring it to the board meeting, the next board meeting. That's an important thing. Cool.
Really quick question just about that. I know it was about a month ago we talked about some of these changes, and is it still just waiting on the board? Is there anything blocking this otherwise?
So there's two PRs. There's the previous one, which is like the one that the board was reviewing last time. Yeah. Am I right in that, Tracy? And then there's this one, which is different.
Right.
This is like the one where we're fixing. Yeah.
And as far as I know, I don't think we're blocked on either. I think it's that I just need to make sure that I have absolute, that PR is frozen in the place that it is and no more changes are happening for me to bring that new one to the board. Yeah. Because whatever I bring to them for resolution, it has to be that verbatim. Otherwise they're proving, yeah.
Cool. I'm just adding something to the notes, the minutes.
I'm wondering if those two need to stay on the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be discussed, or does it just have to get done?
So I feel like the second one probably should be, I guess if it's the board meeting is after the next ComCon meeting, or sorry, the board meeting is before the next ComCon meeting, then it doesn't need to be, but I don't think that's the case. And I'd like to keep this one on just as like a heads up, hey, please review this and get your edits in. Just so we have, there's no denying that you had a chance.
And just to clarify, the one you want the edits on is the second one, not the original. There's 384 and 385, and we're talking about 385.
Yes, you are correct. So 384 can be removed. 384 can be removed from the agenda, unless Tracy wants to keep it on as like a check-in. No, okay, cool. I will do that here. Give me 1 second. Too many tabs. CC agenda, CC. Cool, I've taken those off. I've left the do not merge intentionally. Cool. Cool. Next agenda item, discussion merger, community committee cross multiple projects. I believe this is from Michael. Yes. Do you want to dig into this one?
Yeah, maybe I'd heard different things, and maybe I'm confused on the final position. But I think in the earlier discussions there was discussions around where and how the community committee fit into the merged, potentially merged Node.js and JavaScript Foundation. The current picture shows a C3, which is, I think, at least a community committee sort of analog or has some relationship. And so when I looked at that, I read that as, oh, okay, the thought is that we're moving the community committee across all of the projects. The alternative is, of course, that there's one at that level and one at the node community. And so I just put this on to make sure that I had a good understanding of what this group thought was the right thing, so that when I'm participating there, I can make sure that's represented. I think there were some comments on the issue itself that people said, no, that's a different group than what this group would be going forward.
Yeah, I think, so I've been one of the people, I think, who jumped into that and said, I think in early conversations, Miles was really excited about the ComCom helping share the work that we've been doing with other projects and sort of pulling that up into, you know, I guess they're calling it C3 for the merge, like cross community committee group. But I still think we need to be careful and make sure that we take care, right? Each project still has responsibilities to make their own project run. And I think that there is still a community like ecosystem specific to Node. And so I would say for now, my recommendation would be that like there should absolutely be a ComCom for Node, and that the C3 is really important and we should also participate there because that would be an excellent way for us to represent. And that like down the road, I'm not saying like ComCom isn't needed, but like we could always change that later and say like, oh, actually like all of the work that we're doing is actually at the like cross community level. I don't think that that's going to be the case. But I do think that there's still need for specific work to the work that we do, scope wise.
So the path in that context would be this committee just stays as is, node specific, and then in terms of the C3, there's some sort of representation from each of the, just like the CPC as it's being called, there's some way where it's like, okay, one representative from each of the community committees or something like that goes to the C3.
Yeah, whoever wants to participate.
Yeah, that's something I've been curious about is like there one representative from each project, or is there like, is it just participation based? Like, cool, if you want to participate, you can, or I've been curious about that, but I know we haven't really gotten to that point of discussion.
But that's what would be good to get a sense of what people feel is the right thing. Because I think it's up for us to figure out and push for what we think is right. So what do people think is the right model?
Are you talking about like details of representation for the C3?
Like paths to get to the C3, like how is representation structured in the C3? Like, is it just anyone who wants to participate from the projects? Is it anyone who wants to participate? Is there like one person from each project? That kind of thing. That's something I'm not sure about yet, and I'd love to know.
Yeah, I think it's a good issue to open in the Bootstrap. I don't think that there's one specific to like, I think it may be interesting to see like if we were to open one for the CPC and the C3, if these details end up being the same. Because I don't know, like, I think we've seen in some circumstances where parity makes sense and some it doesn't, because of like the scope of work that we each tend to handle. But yeah.
So I think we over-index on filtering out folks early on. We risk not having enough participation.
Yeah.
You know, it took us quite some time to get to a level of consistent participation with the ComCom that yeah, so you know there may need to be evolved models over time. We did that, right? We decided that you know once we got to critical mass in the ComCom that the best way to continue you know bringing folks in would be through our initiatives and working groups. But in order to you know to bootstrap, we needed you know just folks that were you know willing to commit, participate, and volunteer.
Yeah, I guess the fundamental question is does it need to be tied, like do people participating in this need to be tied to projects or not? Mm-hmm. And are they representing the project? Are they just working on something that's generic, like across everything? And so really it's not a...
Yeah, I mean, for that's a good question. So it is, the C3 is the C3 for this foundation, right? It's not for like we can't, I don't know. I think it is good to want to be as inclusive as possible feedback wise, but it can also be tough to say if the C3 is potentially a governing body or like decision, like in some way going to be allocating resources. If you don't have the context to be doing like as part of that work, like a certain level of engagement, I would say like there does need to be some level of like you are engaged or committed to these things in some way. I don't know if it needs to be only the projects that are under the foundation or if it's like projects under the foundation and like maintainers of projects that are partner communities or something like that sort of thing. But again, this is, okay, so there are issues. Yeah, thank you. Tierney just created these issues. I think all of these conversations should probably happen there because it ends up bringing in the JSF folks more.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we need a proposal on this because I think this is definitely an area that isn't being like detail-wise talked through yet. And I would love to hear other people's feedback on like what should be included in the C3 because there's the ideal and then there's like what we actually can have control over in our projects and like bandwidth, what we can actually take on. Because I do want to be as inclusive and I think it helps our projects. We get more information from that too, more feedback, but.
Yeah, and it's certainly like, you mentioned, needing to be part of one of the foundation projects. So even if you said, yeah, it needs to be somebody in the foundation, it could be like any member of one of the orgs that's under the foundation, or it could be, it's an elected representative from the ComCom.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in between, right? So yeah, it's like where in between is
bandwidth, right? Like if you're already like in a chairperson or director role or whatever in your own project, being required or like being the only person possible to like represent that is like next to impossible in terms of like us actually being able to get things done. And also what happens if like that just feels like you're required to have more on your plate instead of opening it up opportunity wise for other people to help lead those conversations. So that is a great point that like I don't think it should still be like trusted people, but you shouldn't have to be like the representative for all of the things.
So that's sort of how do we, yeah, it's like somewhere between those two makes sense. It's where.
Like you may want to contribute to Node and be working on ComCom, but not want to be the chair. But like maybe you're actually more concerned about the cross, community work and like are willing to commit time to that for professional reasons or for like your own concerns. So like that makes sense too, because you may care about different stuff.
Yeah, I would be inclined to choose the lower barrier of member, active participating member, and then qualify that barrier with some expectations of like, hey, this is a reasonable amount of time that you need to allocate to this, and set those expectations rather than using that as a barrier. Just we need to convey to folks that it is a relatively high commitment of time.
Yeah, and you might like combine with, like I said, any member, but then you might have like with the, since there may be like a voting or whatever, sort of with the okay of one of the ComComs for one of the projects, or I don't know. That's just like another thought of, do you need to have, if there's some sort of governance voting thing, you may need to have some sort of tie back to the project saying, yeah, and this is somebody we think is a good candidate.
So like we do with the certification of our moderation.
Yeah, that's team. A perfect example, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where it really
I'd be comfortable with that.
Anybody in the org, but there's the we're the group says yes, those are our representatives, right?
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, and leveraging that existing art, I think it's a good place to start.
I'd love to see if you all could go comment that in those issues. That would be super helpful.
Thanks, Tony.
I put the links in the minutes. If they're Bootstrap issue 37 and 38.
I'm just going to go type a few words there right now.
Awesome. Great.
Should we move kind of the formation of a proposal to some sort of Google Doc link from the issue? to start fleshing it out, or just drop comments in there?
I would suggest dropping comments for now, and ask that question in those as well. Yeah, I'd ask that in the issue to see what people want to do.
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay, so anything else on that subject? Cool. Final issue, it looks like, and then we have some Q&A/other. Node.js collection suggested updates and changes. So this is in the Node.js collection repo, and for what it's worth, as a reminder, Node.js collection is a community committee initiative. And this is a very comprehensive write-up from Zibby. Zibby, do you want to give a little bit of an introduction to this?
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week, and essentially what we're trying to do as the Node.js collection grows is make it a lot easier for folks to edit, and also for people who are writers to submit articles and have a little bit more of a standardized editing process. I received a bit more feedback on this from a few folks, so I'm working with Rachel to just kind of get that feedback in and do a more formal proposal that might add to it. But essentially, I don't think we're really using Medium as a platform very well in how we edit it. And I think it kind of has slowed down our review process, and also slowed down the ability to get editors to get on board and continue to process it. So that's essentially it. I think there's probably a few more things we want to do to expand it out. But once we get that, we'll add it in, Rachel will add it in, approve it, and then we'll start having a more standardized process than what we're doing right now. Which we kind of focus on what writers and editors want to do. And I think making it a little bit more standard might make it a little bit more seamless. So that's it.
Awesome. Cool. And anyone have anything they want to say on that? Cool. With that, I think we can wrap that issue up. I believe, well, not wrap that issue, wrap the agenda up. And there was Q&A/other, although I think it just got removed. So I don't know what was in that. So hopefully there's nothing else. I will check out, nope, nothing in the chat, the YouTube chat. So we're good. Okay, cool. Thank you, John. And with that, I think we should be good. We're ending it a bit early today. It's the first time in a long time that's happened, as far as I remember. So yeah, with that, I think we're good. Thanks everyone for coming. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.
John.